I wanted to first thank Dr. Anderson and Dr. Hayes for asking me to speak today. It is an honor. Okay, so I know what you're all probably thinking, Alaska. How in the world could you gain a cross-cultural trip from there? Well, I'm here to tell you. A week in Kotzebue, Alaska will make you feel like you are in a completely different country. Vehicles are limited in this area, and most people actually use four-wheelers as a mode of transportation, primarily because these cities, or as they would call villages, are not connected by roads, and most people get where they need to go by a small 6-passenger airplane. And I took one of those, and I'm still here. So the people also enjoy eating whale blubber, reindeer roast, and seal oil. I also tried those things and live to tell about it. If any of you ever travel to Anchorage, Alaska, you need to go to Moose's Tooth Restaurant. It is the best pizza I've ever eaten, and I would confidently say I had 6 slices in one setting. But I'm getting back on track now. While I was in Alaska, we went to the local elementary school and read to the kids and really just got to know them on a more personal level. They actually call where we're from the lower 48, and they wanted to know all about where we're from and how it's different. Some of them were astonished that the sun does actually set at night all year. So in Alaska, they go through a period of time where the sun does not set at all, and then they go through a period of time where it actually doesn't come up at all. So anyways, they were surprised that Tennessee does not receive inches upon inches of snow, and I also learned that blonde hair is not a common hair color in this place. I was walking down the halls and heard children screaming, "Look at that white girl with yellow hair!" So, yeah. So I did stick out like a sore thumb. But I did realize very quickly that for most of these kids, school was their escape. It got them out of the house. Rain or extremely cold weather did not stop them, and they really did love to learn. And as a future teacher, that made me very happy. I wanted to share with y'all the most memorable moment for me while being on this trip. Our group decided to throw a spring carnival for the local children in town. We had set games up all around the sanctuary and planned on ending with a Bible lesson about Jesus being resurrected from the dead. At the beginning of the carnival, not many children showed up. So me and my friend Ashley decided to round up the kids because they all play outside when they get out of school. Okay, so something most of you probably wouldn't know is that in Kotzebue, when the snow melts, it leaves huge puddles everywhere that almost look like small ponds around every corner. And so what the kids like to do is they'll call it puddle jumping. And so they put little rain boots on, and after school, you'll see them hopping across the puddles everywhere. It's the cutest thing. So anyways, we set out walking to all the largest puddles, and sure enough, tons of kids were found jumping their hearts away. We invited them to come with us and enticed them with, "We have candy at the carnival." And I'm just saying, you could never get away with this here. That would be called kidnapping, okay? When we got back to the church, the kids went from game to game, and every single time they were extremely grateful for us being there and just letting them play the game and just spending time with them. Dr. Anderson led the Bible lesson and ended with asking the kids if they wanted to have a relationship with their Heavenly Father. Almost every single hand in the room was raised. We had the privilege of leading those sweet children to Jesus. I prayed with a little boy named Arvid to give his heart to Jesus. I don't know if they're putting that picture up there. I took a picture of him while I was there. He absolutely captured my heart, and I want to go get him. But anyways, I told him no matter how lonely he ever felt, he had a father that would always be with him and would never be too busy to talk. That moment was priceless, and it just gripped my heart. But to wrap it up, I just wanted to say to all of my education majors and really just anyone else in the room who is interested in going on a cross-cultural trip, you really need to go. The relationships you make with the people you go on the trip with will be friendships for a lifetime, and the memories are absolutely irreplaceable. You have the opportunity to also get to know your professors on a deeper level. And for me on this trip, I got to see Dr. Anderson's heart for ministry and for others. I got to watch little Arvid give his heart to the Lord. Being in Alaska just reconfirmed my calling to be a teacher. And I just think it's crazy how the Lord can speak to you and show you things if you will just be still and listen for his voice. I encourage you to choose wisely which trip you might go on because it has the potential to change your life. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pi. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Dr. Hayes for this opportunity, and to Dr. Cam, or who I like to call Papa Cam. He told me he'd probably fail me in class if I said that, but still doing it. So I remember a couple weeks ago whenever they sent us the email about speaking in this chapel, and I looked at my phone and I immediately responded, oh yes, I would love to. And then I thought to myself afterwards, oh no, I'm gonna have to speak in front of Con Center, in front of about 1,200 people. But, here I am, so let's do this. This summer, I got to go on actually 2 different trips. I went to New Zealand with the school, and then I went on another missions trip to Thailand and India for a month. And New Zealand was definitely better. That's my bias, but that's another story. During our time in New Zealand, we had the opportunity to, of course, visit different cities and different mountains and do touristy stuff, of course, like you would do on any Global Perspectives trip. But one thing that made our trip unique was, since we were all there for the education purpose, we visited 4 different schools, and that was by far my favorite part. The picture that they put up with my slide was one of my favorite memories. I remember that day we were visiting a school. It was called the Renwick School, and they're just a little country school that I'm planning on doing my student teaching there senior year, but that's a side fact. I just want to throw that in there. But whenever we walked into this classroom, it was a bunch of preschoolers, and I walked in and I saw them. They were coloring and they were reading books, just doing stuff to pass their time. And then I started looking around some more, and I realized there's not a teacher in there. And I thought, okay, that's fine. She probably just stepped out for a minute. So I started walking around the classroom with the other people that I had with me, and one of the little boys came up to me and said, will you read this book to me? So of course I sat down, and that's what was in the picture. I gathered quite a few kids by the time the end of the story was up. And then about 15 minutes later, I got up from reading the story, and I realized, wow, this teacher still is not here. Why is she leaving her kids? And so I went and asked one of the students, I said, hey, do you know where your teacher's at? And she responded, no idea. And so I stood there, I thought, okay, that's a little odd. But the teacher eventually came back. It was like 20 minutes total that she ended up being gone. But she came back with a glass of tea in her hand, and I asked her, I said, ma'am, we were in your classroom for about 20 minutes. Where were you? And she said, oh, I was at tea time, to which was a concept that she began to explain to us. Over in New Zealand, they have tea time every day for half an hour. All of the staff will just leave all of their students, their preschool through 8th graders, they just leave all of them in their classrooms, and then they go to the main office building, and they have tea and cookies and staff meeting. And see, I had the same reaction y'all did. I was laughing. It was crazy. But I see myself in the future. Of course, I want to be an elementary teacher. That's what I'm passionate about. And I can see myself working my way up into administration. And one thing that I love about learning the tea time concept was it was just a good time to get all of the teachers together to just bring the morale up, which once the teacher's morale is high, then that just leads to the students being taught better. And I don't know, that was something fun that I learned, and I just felt like sharing that. But to wrap this up, I just wanted to encourage everyone here, especially you freshmen. This might be the first time you're hearing about Global Perspectives. Like Dr. Khan said, you can take a trip with your major, or you can just take a trip that interests you. You can even go on 2 trips. I went on New Zealand this summer, and I'm going to Cambridge in January for a whole semester. And so I just wanted to encourage you guys, go on whatever trip you want to. It doesn't matter if it benefits your major or if it's just a place that you want to go to, because I promise you, whatever trip you pick, I know you'll love it. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I went on the Spanish department's trip to Colombia this past summer, and as I was preparing to go, my friends and family voiced their concerns about my travels. As most people know, Colombia has been associated with the common stigmas of drugs and violence. So most often when the subject of Colombia comes up, the name Pablo Escobar, the Colombian drug lord, is mentioned, or something is said about the series Narcos on Netflix. So naturally, because of its turbulent history, my loved ones had their reservations about me going. But first of all, I was going with Lee, so nothing could happen. My best friend was also going, and of course, Dr. Stefanel would not put his Spanish majors or minors in harm's way after he tried so hard to recruit us to become majors and minors. I honestly didn't have any clear expectations of what I wanted to get out of this trip, besides my 6 Spanish credit hours, getting to meet people and see some beautiful sights. However, I quickly realized that it was so much more than that. I immediately fell in love with the country, the people, the ambiance, the breathtaking landscapes, and the coffee. The list goes on, honestly. While there, we visited several cities, including Bogotá, which is the capital, Cali, Barranquilla, Santa Marta, and Cartagena. It was impressive how much we were able to see and do within the span of a month. Of course, we visited some touristy sites like the Salt Cathedral, which is a Roman Catholic church built within the tunnels of a salt mine 220 yards underground. We also visited Plaza Bolivar in Bogotá, a coffee factory in Minca, and several waterfalls that we went to and hiked to and swam in. But one of my favorite places was Minca, where we stayed in a small cabin in the mountains. Although we were literally in the middle of the wilderness with no cell phone service, and we were surrounded by who knows what all kind of animals. For me, it was the most inspiriting time of the entire trip. Instead of being on our phones, we lied in the hammocks and watched the sunset. We also journaled and did yoga, personally met with and got to learn about the indigenous people of the Sierra Nevada. And something I personally love to do was go on a daily jog through the mountains. I would take advantage of this time to self-reflect and appreciate God's greatness. During this time, I felt nothing except a sense of peace and serenity overcome me. As a couple of months have gone by, one of the things I'm most nostalgic about is assisting and interacting with the teachers and students in Cali. They were so delighted and appreciative to have us join them in the classroom and help them with their English, but we were also grateful that they were helping us with our Spanish. Another one of my favorite aspects was staying with the host families. As most people know, Latinos are very family-oriented, so they welcomed me into their home with open arms, were attentive, gave me the opportunity to experience their day-to-day life firsthand, and even as a heritage speaker, having a daily interaction with the Colombians helped improve my Spanish-speaking skills. And of course, I miss my Colombian mom's food and jokes. I also miss the tropical weather, Cartagena's beaches, where we went on boat rides and canoeing and jet skiing, and the endless salsa lessons, although homegirls still can't salsa. And those nights where we would all join together for dinner and embarrass Dr. Stefanel by having the mariachi bands sing happy birthday to him, even though it wasn't his birthday. There was one thing, however, that makes my heart sink every time, and that was getting in a car, because it's not that their driving is bad, but they just seem to have this lax attitude about traffic laws, and lanes don't seem to exist, and 2 minutes won't go by without someone honking. But other than that, and the endless mosquito bites, I really can't complain. At first, this trip was just something I needed to do, but after that month when I came back, I almost felt foreign here. I felt like I left a huge part of me there. I can certainly say this trip exceeded my expectations in every way. And being related to a Latino culture, I didn't really expect to experience the culture shock that I did, but not all Latin countries are the same. They each have their own traditions, unique history, mix of people, and character. So this trip not only gave me the opportunity to learn about Colombia's culture and witness its breathtaking landscapes, but I was able to learn and connect with God, others, nature, and myself. This trip helped me to grow as an individual spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. It has made me aware and appreciate how blessed we really are, and to open my eyes to see that life really is what we make it. It breaks my heart to witness so many people so focused on the stigmas associated with many Latin American countries that they refuse to give beautiful countries like Colombia a chance to amaze them with its rich culture, traditions, beautiful scenery, and the opportunity to meet such kind-hearted, lively people. It was such a blessing to share this experience with such a wonderful group of people and to have been given the opportunity to get a small taste of what Colombia has to offer. I am so thankful for all the work Dr. Stefanel and his brother Herman put into making this trip possible. I know we all came back impacted and transformed through our interactions with the Colombians, through our classes, and as well through the daily use of Spanish. I'll be sure to go back. I also want to thank Dr. Hayes for asking me to speak today, and all this being said, I want to go ahead and end with something our professor told us right before we came back. So he said, remember, Columbia is more than drugs, and Jesus died for you.
I also participated in 2 trips. First, I did the Israel tour trip, and this is our picture from the group, and I also did the archaeology trip with Dr. Peterson for a week. The picture up there was us standing on Mount Carmel. And that's the entire trip of Israel. You're constantly seeing all of these biblical sites from the Old Testament. You're constantly seeing places in the Bible just come alive. And that's important to me because I'm a Bible nerd. Of course, I'm an SOR major. But the land of Israel itself is absolutely gorgeous. Everywhere you go, there's so much history stacked upon layer. There are so many people and things just everywhere you go in Israel. It was amazing. We did so much every single day. We stayed on the Mediterranean Sea, the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee. There were several places that were just gorgeous. The modern land of Israel, besides the history that's there, but the modern land of Israel has now become a haven for the Jewish people. And it's absolutely amazing the hardships these people have gone through. We went to the Holocaust Museum, and we were able to see some of the hardships and terrible things that they went through during the Holocaust. And it was absolutely heart-wrenching. Our tour guide, who was a Jewish man, was able to give us his view and his interpretation on all of these things. As we traveled throughout the land, he also gave us his Jewish interpretation of Christian sites and Jewish sites and sites from the Old Testament. So we kind of got a different view on things. One of the different views that we got from him was his view of the cross. Because he's a Jewish, he's not Christian. And his view of the cross was not what we have. It's not a symbol of hope for him. It was a symbol of war and despair for him. And so he sees it as a new thing for Christians to love them. And that's the identities these people have. And it was very interesting to see them in that kind of context. They had such a strength. Anytime a hardship happens in Israel, no matter what, if they get attacked by the Syrians or whatever, they go to school the next day. The children go to school the next day. They go to work the next day. They act like nothing happened at all because they understand that it has to be their way of life for them to survive. It was fascinating to see all the religion there. We were in Jerusalem for the last 4 days, which is to them the holiest city in the world. And the 2 most important things I saw, or the 2 most memorable moments from the trip, was first standing on the Temple Mount. When you go onto the Temple Mount, it is packed with security. People with AK-47s and M14, all of these guns standing there waiting for you to go through. You got to go past through metal detectors and levels of security. And once you get to the top, it's all controlled by Muslims. The Jewish people will go up there and walk around because, of course, this is the place where they had their temple. And then the Muslims were up there because that's where the Dome of the Rock. Also, the Christians will go up there because it's also very important for them. And standing there in a place where 3 major world religions meet was absolutely breathtaking. It is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and I really encourage you, if you're thinking about it, to go. The second most memorable moment, we were on the Mount of Olives, and CNN standing there reporting, which was really cool. We're on the Mount of Olives, and one of the students, Amanda Hell, decided to walk off and talk on the phone for a moment. We ended up getting on the bus and leaving her there. We drove 15 minutes down the road, and no one noticed, not even her boyfriend who was on the trip. So we had to turn around and go get her. She was very upset. She ended up making a complaint to Dr. Cross and Dr. Kahn, and Dr. Bales, who was our trip director, and it was really funny. We were there during a really tense time, but it ended up being an amazing trip. And the people you meet on these trips are fantastic. And I encourage any of you who are interested in going on these trips to go because they are amazing. The friends and the memory it makes are priceless. Thank you.
When I was in the 7th grade, I had a pet hamster named Linda. My daily life consisted of prank calling my worship leader from church, driving my brother crazy by following him around and all that he was doing, and being the world's biggest Toby Mac fan. My greatest concern was scheduling the next time I would get to ride bikes with my friend Josiah from down the street over our walkie-talkies. Fast forward to this past summer. I had the most humbling and wild opportunity to live in East Africa. Not just live in East Africa, but live amongst 5 different tribes and communities for 3 months, each with such a rich and unique culture. 2 of these 5 tribes that my team and I lived amongst are considered to be completely unreached people groups. There are few places in Kenya where the people live without any modern comforts, but our team was spending a lot of our summer in these places. Knowing the weight of the cultural context that my team and I were about to step into was truly daunting. At a young age of around 9 to 12, the girls in the tribes where we were are bartered off for a certain amount of livestock and other goods. They're seen as mere objects in their community. They spend the next years of their lives subject to the desires of their husband, who in most cases already have several wives. These girls are in the 7th grade. Instead of riding bikes with their friends, prank calling their worship leader, or simply being a child, the girls take on the predetermined roles of grazing the flock, cleaning and cooking, producing more children in hopes for her husband's multiplication of wealth. Their lives are not easy. With one look in their eyes, you can see the simultaneous strength and struggle that these girls walk in every single day. 7th grade. This is a class that I learned I was going to be working with during one of our days in the community. To say I felt heavy about the context I was stepping into would be a complete understatement. In preparing for this day, anything and everything went wrong. I woke up extremely sick, stepped on and got stung by 3 bees, only to put my foot in my shoe to discover that a monster-sized spider had found a home there. Also, in getting stuck in the mud on the way to the community, I had to leave behind another American student that was helping me in the classroom, so I was in it alone. While finally arriving at the school, there were only a few words that brought comfort to me. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. These words of Paul began to be my prayer as I stepped into the classroom. No matter how hard I tried to remember, I can't recall the words that came out of my mouth that day. The main point of the lesson that we were teaching that day was each and every person is made on time, for a purpose, and with a purpose, because we are all grafted into the eternal family through Jesus. As I was helping conduct this lesson, I felt as if God was renewing my perception of his promises and faithfulness to me in one of my greatest moments of weakness. There will never be words to explain this summer, but there's one thing I do know. The summer was not about me. It was not about traveling abroad to a third world country. It was not about the pictures with the children. It wasn't even about Kenya. It was about knowing him and making his name known. It was about allowing him to strip me of every single comfort in my life to better know and love him. It was about laying down my desire for the approval of others and my own strength and simply resting in who he is. The story I shared with you about my 7th grade girls encompasses so much. Every day since being home, these girls have been a motivator to stop, reflect on my severe weakness and depravity without the Lord, and challenge me to seek him first in the midst of my weakness and unknown. This summer, the more I decreased and the more he increased. When he increased, I was more clearly able to see his character, which made my interactions richer than ever before. If you know me, you know that there's one line that has shaped my entire life since Summer Honors 2015. Every human interaction is an encounter with the image of God. This summer, I was reminded that there are people who have never heard the name of Jesus, let alone that they are made in his image. Translating this to now, September 6th, 2018, even though it feels as if everything has changed since Kenya, I'm confident in the one who has been and will always be consistent regardless of my weakness and circumstance. This summer, the Lord used the sweet people of Kenya and their rich and beautiful culture to teach me how to live simply in the extravagance of keeping constant company with him. I'm excited and humbled to continue walking in my summer story here in Cleveland and with my Lee community. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Thank you.
I want to thank all the students for sharing their stories today, and I want to affirm what they have said. There are few things in my life that have impacted me as much as a global trip somewhere, a missions trip, teaching somewhere. And so for all of you who are nervous or concerned or regretting the idea, don't. There's just nothing like stepping outside of your own cultural context and experiencing really what God has for you in those moments and in those spaces. So take courage. They're fun. They're good. They're awesome. Will you stand with me as we say the college benediction together? All right. Let's pray. Now let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Have a great day, everybody.